Hi, Jeff. Thanks for joining me.
Hey, Steve, thanks for having me again.
Good to have you. AI is all in the news for pretty much every market. Today, we're talking about artificial intelligence in real estate investing. And that one of the big stumbling blocks that's coming out is what's sometimes referred to as GIGO, garbage in, garbage out, that there's not a lot of good uniform data on real estate markets that you can run these models on. And to me, what it's looking like is the human factor is going to remain pretty pivotal when it comes to real estate investing with artificial intelligence. Some of your thoughts in terms of, just data uniformity, data accuracy, and the need for a human being that can kind of compare not apples to apples, but apples to oranges.
Look, I think you kind of hit it. Every time somebody comes to a discussion about AI, I think of George Soros and his quantitative fund, where he sometimes doesn't even align with what the quantitative fund is telling him. The AI is telling him to do. It's a gut feeling, and he actually is commented and claimed, there isn't something that a machine can do. Doesn't have that same sense of gut fund or gut feeling that can drive a decision to be not necessarily just about math but about creativity, and I think that gets lost in the data set about AI.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at, one reference to a company that collects real estate information, and they're using 40 different software platforms that aren't interoperable, that aren't using the same data formats. And I think people outside the industry maybe aren't familiar with just how disparate the data is, how non-uniform it is. Um, Certainly if you're comparing a property in like New York to Alabama, you're not, but even if you're, in Florida, one city to another, the data you're having or looking at, you just can't accept that it's comparable in a way that a machine learning program can run it.
Well, I mean, let's actually take it a little bit deeper. If you're going to use Chat GPT, just to name one, right? The data set that it's using is over a year old. It's limited to. I actually made me. I'm trying to remember exactly what it was, but I thought the last time I looked at trying to use stuff and getting creative with it, it told me that the data it was using was like 2022 or 2020, like early 2023. So it hasn't even really caught up yet. And add to catching up, it's meant to be a, I guess, really an application that gets to learn. It's still in its infancy. It hasn't even had time to really learn yet.
Yeah, and I do. I think we have covered this in a prior newsletter we put out. But where it really does seem that AI is going to probably be useful is a lot of the paperwork, documentation,
Sure.
checking over like legal forms, checking out, you need permits or whatever. Um, I think in reviewing forms, completing forms, and that sort of stuff actually can be somewhat standardized, so the
Yep.
models can learn it and use it. I think we all think that's going to have a really productive and beneficial impact on real estate. But when it comes to the kind of sexier stuff of the model figuring out buy this building, don't buy this building,
Mhm.
I think that's where we're just running into um, the uniform comparable data that you need, these programs need, these algorithms need. It's just not out there
Well,
in the
it's
market.
to your point. It's looking at data that's in the past. It's not looking at data real time and moving forward, right? Like it doesn't see the real time data and demographics from yesterday. It sees it from 6 months ago, a year ago. So I think it's hard for it to, unless you unleash it, which nobody wants to do. And maybe I understand why, but unless you unleash it to do what it's really meant to do, it's never going to really catch up.
Yeah, and to draw kind of a comparison, I think I've heard this when it comes to lawyers, that AI really is going to probably take over a lot of paralegal work, completing forms and processing stuff and
Yeah.
doing research, but not so much when it comes to a lot of lawyer work. And I think we're, at least initially, we're going to see the same thing in real estate, where some of the chores you, I, others don't really want to be bothered with.
Mm-hmm.
AI is going to be helpful for that. But when it comes to really the higher level thought processes, even if the models could handle it, the data isn't there. So I think we're kind of looking at a little bit of a similar thing. Some of the lower end tasks are going to get handed off, but the
Yep.
higher end stuff, you still need people who know what the market is, and can really look at disparate data and come to conclusions.
Yeah, I mean, we're touching a lot on the side of the legal industry, and the legal industry is definitely getting a, let's just call it gentrification, because you talk about blockchain and how it's going to impact title. You talk about AI, how it's going to improve on the fact that, or let's just talk about document efficiency. It'll be able to create documents that you wouldn't necessarily, or would take longer to create, I guess is a better way to put it. But it's not going to change the fact that AI doesn't know the particular sentiment of one, a defendant or a plaintiff in either case, which is what's going to, which is what's the nuance of you're speaking of with lawyers and how they actually do work. So look, I think there's still a learning curve with AI. I'm not going to sit here and tell you it isn't useful. It is useful. There's a lot of things it can do. And if people aren't looking at it from the side of there's some usefulness in the efficiency, they're going to be left behind.
Okay, appreciate the insights. Thanks a lot, Jeff.
Thanks, Steve.